Hello there, many thanks for joining us on our Friday Business News Report. It's now time to bring you the feature on the show today. Now, multiple reactions have trailed the president's speech on tax harmonization for enhanced revenue generation, which was made last month. Now, President Buhari argues that harmonizing taxpayers' identification across the country, as the Federal Inland Revenue Service is doing, could be a good start, but advises that much more must be done to promote ease of doing business and ease of tax compliance. Now, the reality remains that the current tax policy in the country has placed a huge burden on taxpayers, with different agencies of government, apart from the FIRS, asking for one form of tax or the other. Now, the situation has also created some doubt and confusion in recent times. Well, joining me now virtually to discuss this and much more, I have Sarah Naiju, Senior Manager at Deloitte. Thank you very much for joining us on the Breakfast Show this morning, Sarah.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to you.
Now, over the last few years, Nigeria has made concerted efforts, definitely, at improving its ease of doing business, ranking and initiatives under the Buhari administration. However, the country continues to underperform in areas like paying taxes and also resolving issues around multiple taxation. How problematic would you say or term this reality, and to what extent do you see this affect the narrative around ease of compliance with the nation's tax system?
Okay, thank you, David, once again. Firstly, it's important we commend the efforts of the current administration of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari. We've seen some significant improvements in the ease of doing business ranking for Nigeria. From the start of his administration, our rank has gone from 170 to 131, and that's commendable. But you see, there are different factors that are considered in determining the overall ranking for Nigeria. And the ranking for paying tax, which is the subject of discussion, that rank unfortunately hasn't done so well during the course of the administration. In particular, we had a dip in a worsened rank for the paying taxes. We grew all the way from 179 to 177 to 182. Yes, in the last 3 years, we've seen some improvement in that rank, and it's posed to a lot of factors. But just to put things in perspective, it's important to know that in determining the rank for paying taxes, which is what we're discussing, there are 3 indices that should be considered. We've got the number of taxes, the time it takes for complying with the tax obligations, and of course, the tax rates. Now, for 2 of these indices, which is the timing to comply and tax rates, Nigeria has actually done very well on those indices. The increasing automation process when it comes to tax filing, the introduction of the tax pro-max, e-tax by Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, other online platforms, propping up across all the different states and subnational levels. So that's improved those 2 indices. But the one index that has not shown a significant improvement, and of course affecting the overall ranking, is the number of taxes. And that brings us to the issue of multiplicity of taxes. We've had that as an ongoing debate and still unresolved. Now, to bring things to perspective, and apologies for the long explanation, but it'll be useful for the listeners to be able to follow. For the multiplicity of taxes, it's not, yes, general definition is that federal government, the federal level is imposing taxes, and we see the state levels as well imposing similar taxes. But we also have other forms of multiple taxes where the same tax base is subjected to multiple taxes. So we see in the case of corporate taxpayers where you're paying the company's income tax, you're paying the tertiary education levy, you're paying the technology levy, all on the same income generated by these companies. So, and to then top it up, we then have other forms of fees and charges by different government agencies. And of course, the one that, of course, most Nigerians will relate with, it's the unlawful payments we get to make. So the roadblocks, the motor park touts. So what we see is, yes, we're seeing improvement in the rank, but there needs to be a more conscious effort to improve the ranking for the paying taxes. And one thing government needs to focus on now is to really plug those various multiple taxes, because what we see is It's discouraging to business. You're not clear on what it is, the number of taxes that you'll be due to pay on any income you're earning. And so that's really stifled the willful compliance of taxpayers and, of course, affecting the revenue generation for the company, for the whole country as a whole.
Silence on the tax administration in the country, saying that the 2021 Finance Act empowers the Federal Inland Revenue Service as the sole authority now to administer tax for the federal government. And do also recall that the FRS and Rivers State government had also had issues over tax collection at state level. Do you think we have reforms here, bringing the 2021 Finance Act, for example, into bear as a case study that clearly expresses synergy in tax administration among the different tiers of government?
I mean, I'll be blunt with you on my response in this one, and it's to say that we're not there yet. Yes, we see a very good move in harmonizing and making it clear that the Federal Inland Revenue Service will be the sole administrator for federal taxes. But we still see quite a number of issues, especially being cropped up by these all multiple taxes. And so once you look at Finance Act, yes, it's commendable. It's been coming on an annual basis, and I'm sure even listeners alongside myself, we look forward to this being a continuous process. But we see that the Finance Act is really focused more on expanding the tax brackets, the tax basket, and rather than addressing the issues around multiplicity of taxes, which is what is really hindering businesses. So, I mean, you see in National Assembly in the last 2 years introducing 2 new bills. We've got the Tertiary Hospital Development Fund bill that was introduced in 2021, and now we're looking at the same NYSC Trust Fund Establishment Bill. All of this just speaks that we need to do a bit more to be able to synchronize the tax administration. Having multiple tax administration is equally as bad as having multiple taxes. And so what we see when it comes to lack of synergy, it's very evident. We look at the case of the FRS and Rivers State governments when it comes to
Sarah,
the VAT.
If I may butt in here now, let's just wrap up our conversation looking at the current fiscal deficit in the country, which you've also touched on just a little bit. But it's one big issue that raises major concerns around the fragility of the Nigerian economy. We cannot continue to run these traditional models and borrowing tactics we have followed through. How much of an out-of-the-box strategy do you think government can adopt now, the Buhari administration as it's wrapping up, and then the new government coming to bear? Out-of-the-box tactics really for revenue collection needs to explore the entirety of the tax base that we have in the country, automation issues, the methodology we are approaching, and also how we can just reduce this borrowing from tax. How do you see things playing out?
Okay, so like I said earlier on, I think we need to focus more on getting, again, the informal sector has been a sector that we've been talking about. And part of the reasons most of them are reluctant to come into the tax base is because of the issue around multiplicity of taxes. So if we can have a conscious focus and develop mechanisms that will effectively tax that sector, I mean, they make up over 80% of the GDP. And also find a way to harmonize this current list of taxes and levies. Put in place more a more efficient tax administration, make it easier for taxpayers. I mean, we've got some incentives already ongoing to attract early payments of taxes. But when you see that vis-a-vis other investment opportunities that companies can take up rather than paying those taxes earlier, they get a higher return. So we need to focus and look at the different tax exposures that is cropping up as a result of the ambiguities in our tax laws, and be able to put in place systems that create that clarity and certainty, and that would encourage taxpayers to be more willful in carrying out their tax obligations.
Definitely. We need transparency. We also need to put our best foot forward, and automation is one of the ways to bring that transparency and clarity. Definitely, it's a work in progress, and we hope that day in, day out, as we have all of these conversations, we continue to do better. We need ease in the business sector. Thank you once again.
Thank you.